Good afternoon, Maverick traders. It's currency recap time. Joe with you here. It's the 7th of August. It's a Thursday. You know the drill. Take responsibility for what you follow along with. Let's take a look at the meaningful news of the day. Let's break down these markets technically, and if I've got some trades to share, that's what we'll do.
All trades and analysis in this video are intended for professional traders only. This content does not constitute financial advice and is for educational purposes. This video is being released after a short delay due to Compliance Department review. Maverick members receive this content immediately as part of their daily trading resources. If you're ready to level up, consider joining Maverick Currencies. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits. You bring the skill, we provide the backing. Let's get into today's market recap and see how the pros are trading the currency markets.
Moving into our market analysis, you can see the markets have dealt with a couple of things. The first is we've got some new tariffs that came across the board when it comes to some tax breaks and benefits on some of our major companies here in the U.S. if they continue to build stuff in the U.S. This was specific to Apple using all sorts of different types of chip makers around the U.S., and so that might impact it. We also have some deadlines. I think the beginning of the month, or I should say, August 6th, 7th, there should be some tariffs that are being implemented unless there was a new deal struck. So kind of shaky up here. The markets really didn't end up doing anything. We'll take a look here at the chart. The Bank of England lowered rates. Today it was expected to lower rates from 4.25% to 4%. The thing that was interesting is it wasn't a unanimous vote. The expectations were 8-1, and it was about 5-4. So more of a hawkish stance, but the pound had a pretty big move. I think it was our bigger move today. And then unemployment claims on the U.S. side did show a slight increase. So maybe there is a little bit more to, hey, the economy is showing some strength in a lot of different areas, especially the markets. But maybe we're going to see a slowdown moving forward. All sorts of fun things to do. But how did we react to that? Well, the yen was completely flat. It's been consolidating kind of in a sideways move for a little bit. But the pound and the Kiwi, two big shooters, they shot up. The Kiwi was also in the news earlier this week with some unemployment numbers of their own. With the pound changing their rates up about 0.5% today. Kiwi continue to move higher. But overall, folks, it's just an oversold bounce on the longer term charts. There's still not a lot out there that's got me excited to go run out and trade right now. Moving over to how the U.S. markets closed, it was flat. The Dow was down about 0.5%, but the S&P was, you can see it here, 0.08% down, slightly lower. And the world index actually closed higher. So did the NASDAQ as well with some of that new tariff news. Cryptos had another good move to the upside. Gold with a bounce. You see that, a little bit of fear at the top. Gold usually reacts. And oil dropped again. So let's get to some of the cryptos across the board. All kind of the same. Ethereum having the biggest move, although I think Bitcoin Cash has a pretty tradable chart for you guys who want to be something a little bit shorter term. There's nothing out there I really want to buy and hold day to day. That is for sure. So I'm going to keep this outlook at a +1. We've been there for quite some time, but you could see by this candlestick, there's really not much to go off of. We had the expected dark cloud cover, and it did follow through. We had a good move to the downside, which is a round of profit taking. And I can say that with confidence that it's a round of profit taking because we've marched all the way back up to basically the bottom of that original closing price before the gap Thursday. So we are back into this range. It's a wide range. I mean, look at this red-green candlesticks. Can be super difficult to do from time to time. But overall, it's just going to be pretty volatile and not really go anywhere. So I'm not really looking for any sort of big move to the upside or downside until I see some of these things majorly break. That being said, it's going to be a little bit muddled, at least in the shorter term. Taking a look at the economic news or the numbers, it's relatively light. It really is. Here's the Kiwi announcement. You guys could see that it was earlier in the week, and it's just, once again, kind of this follow-through of more of an oversold bounce. Here is the Bank of England. Here's our monetary policy changes. Here was the expected announcement, 8-1, and it was 5-4. So they did lower the rates as expected, but a little bit more indecisive when it came to those votes. And so it created a little bit more of a hawkish outlook. Here's the unemployment claims for the U.S., a slight drop showing, hey, we might be a little shaky up there. Now, obviously, we do have a couple more things coming out with the unemployment change and unemployment rate for the CAD. We'll see if there's any impact on that tomorrow. But outside of that, folks, I think we're through at least any sort of news for this week. So let's go out and break down these currencies one by one and kind of see what they've given us. As always, folks, I like to start with the yen. You could see on the velocity side, it just kind of flattened itself out. Now, it might gather some strength and move higher, but for now, I'm just going to kind of keep it soft, meaning it's just kind of flattened itself out. You can see, I mean, it barely changed at all. So easy for me to keep that at a zero. The dollar, a little bit of a slide. It's had a slide for quite some time. I'm trying to see or identify if it's broken any sort of levels that I can actually trade off of. And it is slowly bleeding through some of these levels, but no real conviction in it. I did give it a -2. I do like the velocity. It's not aggressive, but it is still directional. So I'd like to see it break something a little bit more definitive, probably down in this area, or let's see what happens after it gets its first bounce. But it is definitely showing some signs of weakness, just kind of a bleed lower. Frank is also showing some weakness. This is kind of rolled over. It hung in there for quite some time, but it's starting to slide. And these are some of the levels that I like to see. If it's breaking some support levels that it set a while ago, descending triangle pattern, I'd like to see more conviction. I don't like to see tails shoot up like this, but it's got that sloping lower RSI. I had to give it a -3. You could go -2. I could easily see it have one more bounce before it rolls down, but I'm just not seeing any sort of great conviction in any currency because they just like to correct. So every time I get excited about a pattern like this, it does trigger, but it doesn't last very long at all. Let's move to the euro. The euro actually shows a little bit more strength. I moved it to a +1. I like it because it broke above resistance and it's actually kind of retesting an area, so kind of a bull pullback. Let's see if it can kind of stabilize at this area, set a candle even where it's at, and move a little bit higher. So a +2 on this makes sense. Problem is, folks, I just can't find anything else I want to pair it with, at least in the shorter term. So let's look at our big mover today. This is the pound. You can see this looks great, but it's not very tradable. A little stair step, broke out, big surge, everything looks good. But if you take a look at this on the daily chart, it's a much different story. It's just an oversold bounce. This thing was pretty much due to have something like this a while ago. Now, if it can sustain up about this level, set a higher low, we can draw head and shoulders, or I should say inverted head and shoulders, or ascending triangle, or a move above those resistance. I'd be more into it. But as of now, it's just a very strong oversold bounce based on maybe some sort of a news catalyst. So let's go to the CAD. The Canadian dollar looks like a pretty good slide here. I had this at a -2, and it looks like it might be a little bit more than that. It does have numbers coming out tomorrow, folks. It's got some numbers. They might be coming out here soon, so we'll see. But this might be something to look at. So CAD to the bear side might be a pretty good trade here, but I don't know how long it's going to stay that way. And if these numbers aren't as bad as expected, I could see maybe the CAD flip around. So still too much of a coin flip out there for me as of late. Here's the Aussie dollar. The Aussie dollar is kind of a range bound. I kept it at a 0. Looks like it was trying to emerge, just kind of rolled back and forth, sideways on everything in the RSI. And then let's take a look at the Kiwi real quick here. You can see the Kiwi looks pretty decent. Hey, look, there's that stair step it had from its news, maybe started back on Tuesday. But it looks like it could be, a nice little sending move. However, if you take a look at this on the daily chart, it's kind of the same thing that the pound is. It just looks to me like it's in a bear rally, and it could roll over and move down. So every time I get a little excited on the short term, and that's the day trader in me, it gets kind of ruined because of some of these daily charts that I pulled up. Here comes the cryptos. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. I thought Bitcoin was pretty decent. It's kind of pushed up. It looks like it's overextended itself, but the Bitcoin Cash, and I'm just going to go ahead and give you my potential trade right now. This would be it, or any sort of continued weakness in the CAD. Keep an eye on that. Let's see where those numbers go. But let's get back to the Bitcoin Cash here. I just like it, setting triangle pattern. This might consolidate and take its time and maybe pop up. This is nothing I want to hold for very long. You guys you notice how much volatility is in these. So it'd be a Bitcoin Cash trade would be decent, or anything with the Canadian dollar if we can see continued weakness based on those numbers coming out tomorrow. I would steer clear of anything that is in that bounce, like the pound or the Kiwi, something a little bit more stable against the CAD, maybe like the euro or even the yen. So that's pretty much it. This is the velocity score here. You can see things have moved to the extreme opposite sides. We had them all together, but everything that's moved to the the upside or the downside is more of corrective action. I'd like to see a little bit more continuation weakness in the CAD. for trade. And maybe on that Bitcoin Cash, if it can stay at that +2, +3 area, might be something for us to look at as well. So that's all I got for us. The S&P and the NASDAQ do close flat today. Remember, they did come off of highs, but they didn't really fall apart. The NASDAQ actually turned around and climbed back up. I think a lot of that has to do with news, like the tariff news, stuff like that. But the Dow itself did turn a little bit lower. So keep an eye on that. New tariffs, the deadlines, the impacts, the possibilities, what's going to happen. A lot of stuff that I've seen moving has had policy or some sort of economic announcement. Remember, we've got the CAD coming out on Friday, and we'll see if we can't pair that against something a little stronger. Now, that's basing if the CAD's going to continue that momentum to the downside. If it's good news, it could turn right around and it just ruin the whole pattern itself. So thank you, everybody, for joining me, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.